Playoffs are here in fantasy football. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a very interesting playoffs. So many unknowns as every year, but I'm looking forward to helping you guys out. I'm going to give you my Week 15 starts and sits at quarterback, receiver, running back, and tight end. But first, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any fantasy football questions or comments, I'm sure you guys have some this week. It's a big week. You guys got to win in most leagues, probably the semifinal games. For some of you, maybe even championship week this week. I am ready to help you guys out, so be sure to put those questions in the comment section. Could be a start and sit question. Do I start this guy or this guy? Or, so many different things. Should I pick this guy up off the waiver wire and start him this week? Any fantasy football question that you have, put it in the comment section. I will answer it on the next video. Also, if you are into the NFL draft, we are getting closer and closer. We're under 150 days. I believe we're like at 133 days right now until the NFL draft. I do have my first big board out at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. The link will be in the description. You can click on that and check it out. I go through my top 100 prospects in this draft. I hope you all will go and check that out. But it is time to get into my starts and sits for Week 15. We will start at the quarterback position. The first one I want to get into is Derek Carr on Thursday Night Football going against the Chargers. Chargers number 23 against the pass. And Derek Carr, he has been rather consistent of late. Chargers giving up over 19 points a game. Not an excellent start, but if you really need a quarterback start this week, you can go with Derek Carr. If you're in 2 QB leagues, Carr is a start. Another guy I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 to 12 guy this week, but someone who, if you're in 2 QB leagues and you need a starter, Mitch Trubisky is the other guy I have on my start list this week. All the other guys I was thinking of putting on there were too much. They were too obvious. So I'm going to go with Mitch Trubisky here as a sleeper. He has played really well the past few weeks. He's thrown for about 250 yards a game. This past game, he had 3 touchdowns. He's playing really consistent ball. And I believe he's going to bring you a fairly high floor this week against a Vikings defense that is not great by any stretch of the imagination. My starts at running back. Austin Ekeler is the first one. He also plays Thursday night going against the Raiders, who are third worst against the run defense. Now, I will say they did make a change with the defensive coordinators. They fired the defensive coordinator. Sometimes that does get a defense going. We'll see if that does for Las Vegas, but still, you can't bench Austin Ekeler, especially in a matchup like this. You have to start him. Running back is so thin. He is a must start this week. Austin Ekeler. The next guy who I think is really a must start is now Mike Davis. Christian McCaffrey has been downgraded to doubtful for this upcoming game. The Packers, they are also bottom 5 against the run. And Davis, he's coming off a 20-plus fantasy point performance. I don't know if he hits 20 again, just because you're relying too much on him to get a couple touchdowns. But I do think he will get double-digit fantasy points for you this week. David Montgomery is a guy who, if you've been following the channel for the last few weeks, I've been telling you guys that David Montgomery is going to come through for you come playoff time. He has been fantasy gold the past 2 weeks, going over 20 points in each of them. And now he's going against a Vikings defense that is not that great. The Bears are really rolling right now. So I really like David Montgomery this week. The last running back start that I'm going to give you is Jonathan Taylor, who has also gotten around the 20-point range the past 2 weeks. And he's going against Houston, who is one of the worst run defenses as well. There are a lot of these running backs in this middle range. We're finally starting to see what we were hoping from Jonathan Taylor at the beginning of the year, with this offensive line just taking over games, and Taylor with his power running style just going straight through those holes without much hesitation and being able to just burst off some huge gains. And he's also helped as a receiver. He's improved as a receiver as well, shored up the hands some. He had that one 30-yard touchdown this past week. So I expect his success to continue this week against Houston. Let's move on to wide receiver. My top wide receiver start of the week is actually Brandon Aiyuk, and he has become Nick Mullins' clear-cut number 1 target. He got 16 targets last week. I believe he brought in 10 or 11 of them, and he's going against Dallas this week, who is 26th against the pass. So I like him this week. Aiyuk scored 11.5 points at least in each of his last 5 games. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Aiyuk can do. I believe he's a high floor, high ceiling guy this week, a guy that you should be starting at the very least in your flex, but I think he's going to bring you good wide receiver 2 numbers this week. Antonio Brown this one is a risk, but it is the Atlanta Falcons, who are dead last against the pass. They have been horrible all season long. And even though there are a lot of weapons, there are a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. I know Scotty Miller, he had a touchdown, so now you have to bring him in. You got Gronk, you have Evans and Godwin already. But Antonio Brown is still getting as many targets or more than anyone else in the offense. He had 5 targets. Doesn't sound like a ton, but going against Atlanta this week, they're going to be throwing a lot. I believe it's going to be a fairly high-scoring game, and I expect Brown to finally, this is my prediction for the week, he is finally going to get his first touchdown as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So I would start Antonio Brown this week and hope that he can get into the end zone. If you have a good receiver core, maybe you don't start him, but I think as a flex guy, he's a guy that is going to be that flex, maybe even a low-end wide receiver 2 for you this week, and I think that's pretty safe considering all of the other matchups around the league. I think that he's a pretty safe play this week. Terry McLaurin going against Seattle. Scary Terry, when healthy, and we'll watch the injury status this week of both him and whoever's going to be quarterbacking for them. If Alex Smith is the quarterback, he's definitely a start. Seattle is dead last against the pass, and Washington doesn't have a whole lot of weapons left on offense, so he's going to get a huge target share, and Seattle doesn't have anyone that can stop anybody, literally, at the receiver position. So Terry McLaurin is a guy you need to be starting. Jarvis Landry is my last wide receiver start going against the Giants, who are 11th against the pass. Their defense has actually been solid this year, but Landry's gained so many targets right now. He's the number 1 option in that offense. The offense is playing a lot better, and the Browns are going to be really mad coming off of that loss against Baltimore on Monday night. Going against the Giants on Sunday Night Football, they have a chance to really prove themselves to the nation. So I think that Jarvis Landry is going to have a nice game for you. At tight end, I'm going to give you 2. The first one is Jared Cook going against Kansas City, who's number 26 against opposing tight ends. And then Evan Engram, who hasn't done a whole lot the past few weeks, but the Browns are second worst against fantasy tight ends. And with Daniel Jones slowly getting back to full health, he isn't back to full health yet, but I do think that he's going to get a lot of looks this week in the red zone. So hopefully he can pound in a touchdown, but you're really just reaching with tight ends this year. It's so hard. There's not a lot of great options, so I think you take a chance with good matchups this week and take a chance on Jared Cook and Evan Engram in 2 games that could potentially be high-scoring affairs. Let's move to my sits. At quarterback, Matt Ryan going against Tampa Bay. And Matt Ryan, he has not topped 20 points since week 9. And Tampa Bay, they're a middle-of-the-pack defense. They aren't as good as they were last year, but I would avoid Matt Ryan. Tua Tagovailoa is my other sit going against New England, number 3 fantasy defense against opposing quarterbacks. Plus, Davante Parker's having some injuries. I don't like Tua in this matchup. Rookie quarterbacks don't usually do good against Bill Belichick. At running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire going against New Orleans, not a good matchup. Todd Gurley going against Tampa Bay, not a good matchup, and he's still rebounding from his latest injury. DeAndre Washington going against New England, not a good matchup. He didn't do anything on the ground last week with the 13 carries that he got. And then David Johnson, who's coming back off of COVID against the Colts. The Colts are number 12 against the run, so it's not a horrible matchup, but it's also not a very good one. And David Johnson, we don't really know how healthy he is, so I would avoid David Johnson as well. At wide receiver, Tyler Boyd going against the Steelers. Don't trust any Bengals receivers. Actually, don't trust any Steelers receivers right now either. Robby Anderson going against the Packers, who are number 7 against the pass. He's going to be facing up against Jair Alexander, which is not anything you want to hear in fantasy football land. Davante Parker going against the Patriots. If he plays even, so watch his injury status, but I wouldn't start him even if he is healthy. And then CeeDee Lamb going against San Francisco, who's number 10 against the pass, and Lamb has gone under 50 yards in 4 straight games. So I would avoid CeeDee Lamb. Hayden Hurst at tight end, and Austin Hooper. Hooper coming back from an injury, don't trust him. And then Hayden Hurst, he's gotten under 10 yards in 3 of his last 4 games, so he's very unreliable at this point. Then my sleepers of the week are Drew Lock going against Buffalo. Could be a sleeper in QB2 leagues. Michael Pittman going against Houston. J.D. McKissick going against Seattle for your running back. And then at tight end, Gerald Everett going against the dead last New York Jets. That's going to do it all for today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any fantasy football questions or comments, put them in the comment section, and I will answer them for you all. So get those questions coming. That's going to do it all for today. Hopefully you all win your leagues. Have a good one.